So this next box is made from the offcuts of the red cat toy box. So there I got the pieces cut, the offcuts. Here I'm running through and doing the box joints and the 1/4 inch box joints on the box joint jig. That works really good. Turns out that this ends up being a square box with the offcuts, or I should say I squared them up so that they were square pieces. So it actually came out pretty cool. I like the way this box joint jig works. That's worked really well since I got it set up a few years ago. Here I'm cutting the lid out of an extra piece from a dresser drawer, a piece of oak. And in a little bit, I'll realize I screwed up because this piece should have been run through the drum sander before cutting it to be really short, because drum sander works great on slightly longer things. It does not work so good for little tiny squares. And right about there is where I realized it. And so, okay, we'll do the super glue and tape trick. So we super glue it to a board, and then that is solid enough that you can run it through the drum sander, and it actually works to take the stuff off. It turns out, so this board, one side was good, one side wasn't. So I had to get all that sorted off. So here, now we're just cutting the board back off, and it works decently well. This actually came off better than I was expecting it to, which is nice, because you're never sure of if the baking, or I should say, if the super glue got in the wrong spot, but this ended up doing okay. And I was able to get those pieces off eventually, and we got it sorted. And once that's done, I was able to go get all the sanding done, and there I marked it so that I knew which side connected to where, because there's nothing worse with a grain match box. You forget which side's which and put it together wrong. So similar to the other cat toy box, I started with 120 grit, then went to 180, and then finally 220 for all the sanding. So sanding worked out really good. And then this next part, I have a whole video on it, but basically I wanted to wood burn in a section of that picture into the side of the box. So I ended up doing the whole process for this as a separate video. And yeah, here's the final bit of wood burning it in. If you want all the details, there's another video on all the little steps that I go in a little more detail on, but yeah, it actually came out pretty cool. The one thing with that is I need to have more practice and possibly use a different tip on my soldering iron, or get an actual wood burning tool with the wood burning tips. But this is just the fine point soldering tips, and it does okay. I know if I had one of those desktop lasers, that would have done it in much cleaner lines, but I don't have that, and this worked. So yeah, came out pretty cool considering. And there, it's all glued up. And now I get to cut off all the little corners, because that's the one thing, this method you have to cut off the corners. So luckily that little cutoff saw works good. It works better in the vise, because then it holds it nice and still and you can use both hands. But yeah, it cuts off fairly well, and then it's much easier to get sanded because the edges are all mostly flat. And then again, since I have those cut off, I just go through with the sander, get things sorted off. I don't think I went clear down to 120 on that because it was already mostly sorted. I think I started at 180. Then here we go, just filling in any of the remaining gaps, because there is sometimes some tear out. So I'm using a combination of super glue and sanding to get the sawdust down in the corners, and it ended up working really well. And yeah, I like that method. I also like the little flexible tip on the super glue lid, that works much better. So after I get it all sanded, I decided I wanted to have a lid that I cut off the top. So this would have been easier before getting to this point. I could have cut a slot in to fit the lid in, but I didn't do it that way. So I trimmed the top off the box, and then here I'm measuring the top piece such that it will friction fit down inside the top that I cut off. And that worked pretty well. You just got to take it slow and careful and just try it and move the saw just a fraction, try it. And pretty close. Yep, it fits. All right. So now I want to get the lid evened up such that it's about the same height down from the top of the rim. And so I'm just using the thing and trying to figure out, and then it's like, okay, there's an easier way. Get pieces of wood that's all the same, hold it down in the right spot, and then use that. And then I decided, all right, I want to have something stick down. So I have a rounded piece of trim that if I sit in the corner, that will stick down from the lid inside the box, and then that will hold the lid on the box. So that was just a piece of oak edging that I had from some scraps or something. And so I just held it in the corner, used the knife to draw it in the corner. Then I used my little Japanese chisels to carefully carve out approximately the same size groove, divot, whatever you want to call it. And for this, I just used the blue tape to hold the board down to the piece of plywood that I've clamped in the vise. That way it was held down securely enough, but also quick and easy to move around. And yeah, the perils of nearsightedness. Sometimes you got to take the glasses off. And here I'm just going through and taking little oak edging and using my really awesome cutter to cut off the one side of it, and then use the little miter box and the saw to cut off the other side. And then I have 4 corners, and that should work good. And it goes on off the box. So next I'll have to glue it up. And of course there's always trials and tribulations when this happens. I had to sand some off because they had a slight tilt, but that's fine. We can do that. So then once that was all sorted, I glued the lid the rest of the way. And that was all nice and attached. And then used the file to file the edges of the little drop down pieces. That way it fit down in. And the blue tape marks where the grain matches, so I don't lose that. And yeah, so that works nice. And even though the lid's the same size, there's enough of a friction fit that it stays. And in here I ran out of badges. Hopefully this will be a common occurrence, which means I'm making lots of projects, but this is how I made the little badges. Just again, soldering iron, plus pencil and little thin pieces of oak, and go through and figure it out. And here I decided, all right, I'm going to make a little heart shaped on it, because I'm not going to want to leave the blue painter's tape on. So there's a heart shape on the box to show which way the orientation for the lid goes. And then here I just used the thin super glue to glue the little badge on, and then put the triple thick varathane polyurethane on. I like these little rockler stands. They work really good to keep the edges up off. But yeah, the grain really started to pop as I put the finish on. It was nice before, but it looks much better with it on. Alright, well, the other box is done, and it came out really cool. Let's see if I can... Hey, I got the sunshine. Yay. So there's the front, and we got the sides. Got the little badge, because that's always cool. And then I got the top. So the little heart shapes, which I think both are on the screen, you line those up, and that's how the lid goes on nice. So the inside, I don't know if we'll be able to see that, but the problem with doing things in the sunshine is you never know if the stuff is going to show up or not. And the inside with that. And as long as you put the two heart shapes in the same direction, it goes on nice. And the grain all matches up on all the sides of the boxes. So that's cool. And for finishing, I used the triple thick Varathane clear gloss and a little bit of the Renaissance microcrystal hard wax. But yeah, I think it came out awesome. And so yeah, this is going to go up on the Etsy store once I get that part sorted. But very cool. So we'll try this on the phone too, just for a quick follow-up. Box came out great. And this is what it looks like in the sunshine. So it's oak the whole way around, out of some furniture I took apart. Nope, two hands. So the box comes apart. It has these little nubs that hold it in. And there's a heart shape on this side, and there's a heart shape on this side. And that's how you know to line it up to put it in. It will fit the other way, but it'll get stuck a bit, and you probably don't want that. You can theoretically get it back out, but it's easier if you do it the right way. That's probably way too fast, but yeah. It has awesome oak grain. And to think that this kind of oak was hidden inside a kitchen cabinet frame. Yeah, came out awesome.